The film board gathers. Oh, yeah. We're going to wink and nod right into the podcast fourth wall today, everybody. We're going to wink and nod so hard you won't even know if it's a podcast you're listening to. I'm so excited. I'm Pete Wright. Welcome to the show. I've got Tommy Metz III and Justin JJ Jaeger and Ocean Murff, and we're going to talk out of our winking and nodding face holes about Deadpool and Wolverine.
I know I turn everything into a joke, but I care. Or I want to use that for something important. I waited a long time for this team up. In my world, you're well regarded. You were an X-Man. Fuck that, you were the X-Man. The Wolverine. He's a hero in my world.
Yeah, well, he ain't shit in mine.
It seems to me that the people in my circle are giving this fair to middling reviews, like in that sort of 2 to 3 star realm. And I'm trying to figure out why. Is it because the movie is too much? When I walked out on Thursday night, I was overwhelmed by the fourth wall breakage. It felt like this movie had amped up Deadpool's already wry sensibility, and now everybody's looking at the camera. And I wondered if that was too much. And then I slept on it, and I woke up, and I was still laughing about it. I thought it was still funny. Can I get some opening thoughts about how you felt like the movie hit you as it has aged? Tommy, go
it's
first.
me.
You're a noted antagonist of these kinds of movies, so why don't you take the call?
I'm a noted antagonist about these movies, but a noted protagonist about Deadpool. Deadpool gives me a lot more of what I would want, which is sort of winking, hand-holding, and taking the air out of self-seriousness, all of those things. So I enjoy that. This movie takes more swings, and a lot of those swings are huge. And at times it almost crumbles under the amount of things it's trying to do. But overwhelmingly, I had an absolutely wonderful time. I thought it was hysterical. I thought a lot of the action was really great. The plot, I love just calling something a MacGuffin when it's introduced as a MacGuffin. I love that they make fun of Kevin Feige. I mean, there's so much. This is the meta-ist of meta. And there's so many some would say inside Hollywood jokes of like Death by Day player, like all of these things. It was everything for me. And I bet it was chock full of Easter eggs and things in the Marvel universe that I did not get and I did not miss because it never stopped. I loved this movie. I had an enormously good time with it. Thank you.
Oh, I am thrilled to open the platform with that kind of exuberance. Ocean?
This movie is layered in a way that as a comic book nerd, I loved. And so the movie is funny on its own. The jokes are crude and nonstop and cannot be repeated on the show, but they're amazing. And the meta part of it and how much it was that the movie gets funnier the more you understand or know about the other movies and really actors that are being referenced in these other jokes.
Yes.
And I think that would be getting back to what you're saying about people in your universe are giving it fair to middling reviews. I really feel that the more you know about these other things, the funnier that the movie becomes. And really what it reminded me of in a lot of ways was it's a better version of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And that movie was, and here's how I got there.
Better.
That movie, yeah. Yeah. Here's how I got there was that movie was, funny on its own, but a send up of all the things in the, Kevin Smith's Skewniverse. And this movie really is a large send up of all of the superhero movies that the Fox universe or Fox Studios made, and how those movies, while they were not as financially successful as the MCU was, and not really as beloved as the MCU is, really were the shoulders that the MCU and all these other movies stand on. and it was in its own way not only poking fun at these movies, but also paying a lot of reverence and respect to these movies and thanking them for existing, and so that we could now enjoy what we're seeing today.
Especially with that time of your life ending credits love letter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that was wonderful.
it was.
Very special.
I was more emotional than I thought I would be when I was watching all that.
Yeah. All right, JJ.
Well, I think this movie is simply wonderful. And by that, I mean that it's very simple, but it is wonderful. And so I think I'm probably like one of your buddies that is going to give it a fair to middling review, in that I super enjoyed it. But I wanted it to be magic. I wanted it to be what the two Guardians movies were for me. And it isn't really that. So that's the thing that I think where it falls into the middle for me. I had a lot of expectations coming into this movie. I should say, I shouldn't even compare it to the Guardians movies. It didn't really do to me what the Deadpool movie did to me when I first saw it, right? And while there are all these special things, and I loved so much about this movie, I was hoping for it to be that next level thing. I'm so happy it's made. I love all the lore. I love all the Easter eggs. I'm all about those things. But I wanted it to be more than simple. So it is wonderful, but there were a lot of the swings that I saw that you were talking about, Tommy. They missed a little bit for me, in that they didn't feel like they were completed. And I think that's totally okay, because I really enjoyed the movie. I think too, Tommy, if you think this is the meta-est of all meta, you haven't seen the finale to She-Hulk. That
I've
is
seen none of She-Hulk.
That
Okay.
is. Yeah, and She-Hulk is a companion piece to Deadpool in the fourth wall break thing that you're talking about, Pete,
100%.
in that they both have this fourth wall sort of setup with it, which I think is wonderful in it. I loved She-Hulk, I love Deadpool, and I think this is a wonderful movie, but I wanted something more from it. So I'm a little bit on the middling side, but definitely on the positive middling world.
Well, and that's the piece that that I think is really interesting. Like the fourth wall breakage. You talk about She-Hulk. That's what I was thinking about the whole time. Like these two characters have such great allegiance to the comic like tone, because they keep looking out of the frame at me and talking to me. I thought that was really, really great. The thing that I think is interesting about Deadpool and Wolverine, the first time we ever saw Deadpool and Wolverine on screen together was X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah.
And it was rightly, I think, reviled. it was not great. And it's just fantastic that we have the same actors who are able to play these parts rightly in this movie. And so what the first Deadpool movie,
it's incredible that has happened.
Yes. Yeah. What the first Deadpool movie gave us was the gift of getting Deadpool right for me. Right? Like we already had them break Deadpool, and now the gift of Deadpool 1.
Okay. Yeah. That's what that was. Okay.
Also played by Ryan Reynolds. Like that was
and he shot himself in Deadpool 2.
In Deadpool 2, yes.
Deadpool 2.
Okay.
Right.
Which was the correct response.
That was the correct. They understood the assignment. So the first Deadpool was that gift. I don't remember what the second Deadpool was for me. I don't remember what the gift was of that Deadpool. Do you? What was it that struck you about the second Deadpool that was so great? I enjoyed the movie, but I don't remember feeling like, oh, they fixed a thing that was wrong in the universe.
Well, other than Ryan Reynolds doing the things that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Killing that off and literally like also giving himself a bullet before he takes on Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Which the send-ups of the DC universe in this, I think, are wonderful as well.
They are.
But in terms of the X universe, what they do is introduce Cable, and they introduce time travel on the Fox side in a way that works for that. And when we talk about the writing of this film, of Deadpool and Wolverine, how they're now integrating and perhaps killing off the concept of multiverse theory because of how well they've written it, right? I mean, what Deadpool 2 allowed us to do was to wade into, not Wade Wilson, but wade into the idea of time travel in a way that fixed a bunch of that. And now you've got Deadpool. They called it out way too many times in the movie, but being Marvel Jesus, excuse me, to come in and say, we're going to fix this other thing that is not working for the MCU. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of neat that they're doing that.
Well, that was the point I wanted to make about Deadpool 3, that about Deadpool and Wolverine, that the gift that we get with this movie is the sort of unleashed Fox destruction, right? The X-Men are official, right? We're not teasing the X-Men. We're not going to be able to just use some of the characters on loan anymore. Like this is a real thing, that the X-Men and the Avengers are in one place for the first time legitimately. And I had chills when they're in the car together and Deadpool's doing the Spider-Man stuff, right? I thought, okay, is that one of the cameos? So that was one of the great gifts that I think this movie gives us, is it just kicks open the saloon doors for whatever they want to do next. And I'm here for that.
Yeah, it kicks open the doors to everything, but then it says, but we're all going to be in this room for the first time.
That's the
Yeah.
idea. So did you have a stake in the time travel shenanigans, Tommy?
What? What's the best? A stake in the time travel? You mean like the multiverse stuff?
Yeah, to multiverse stuff. Did you have a feeling about that? Were you ready for them to fix it? Did you care? Did you love it? Did you just want more multiverses?
No, I didn't want more multiverse, and it made me feel better in how much I had been left behind. I haven't seen a lot of the latest movies like Eternals or Marvels or Webs. I don't even know whose is what's, but I stopped seeing them. When we stopped seeing them, I stopped seeing them. And so this felt like a little bit like, it's okay, Tom, you'll be fine. And if you really want to go back, we're going to mention the exact Loki episode that you have to go watch if you want to know what this big purple thing is. So that's great. So it felt like a little bit of hand holding, and also we get it. Our palette was a little too big. Not our palette, whatever you paint on.
Canvas.
Our canvas was too big, and our palette made a bad paintbrush. Damn it.
I really didn't come away with it that way. So the thing to me was that, they definitely made a lot of jokes at the expense of the multiverse and said, hey, this doesn't work, let's take the L and move on, which is, potentially welcomed. But the way the whole thing unfolded, it felt to me like they just restored the multiverse back. The MacGuffin was in a sense going to kill them all down to one universe. Then, then the Deadpool and Wolverine hold hands and, fix all that. And it goes back to 100%. So we have all the different multiverses again at the end. I know I'm jumping to the end, but when he starts talking to the woman from the TVA to restore people back to their timelines, that happens. And then we see the dinner at the end where X-23 is with them, assuming that now she is in that timeline, and they mention what Earth that is, and the other ones are still there. So I really didn't come away with this feeling that they went away from the multiverse. They just restored it back to what it was, incorporated this new, I don't know, Earth 10005.
1005.
Yeah, they reincorporated that into it, so that the Marvel, so in a sense, not the Marvel, the Fox cinematic universe exists on that Earth. And that's where these versions of the X-Men and everything will live. But you'll still have these other Earths that have, Doctor Strange bouncing around.
616.
616, 61, all the other ones. Yeah, so I didn't come away with it feeling that they'd done that they would just incorporated Deadpool into the multiverse, not getting rid of the multiverse.
But you didn't get the feeling that we're not going to be bouncing around so much?
Yeah, I guess that's my point, right? So have you all seen all of Loki?
Just the first season.
Yes.
Okay, so B-15, who is the leader of the TVA in Deadpool and Wolverine, that's her name. Her personality and the evolutions that she goes through in Loki is to save everyone on all timelines, because all lives have an important sort of way to go, right? So that's where B-15's character goes. So her showing up to do that is here. And I take what you say, Ocean, as that's probably true, right? She's preserving the ability for multiverses or multiple timelines to exist as she appears in this film. What I think is interesting is where we have our primary character saying, we don't need to do this anymore because this didn't work, is that it's saying, yes, the multiverse exists, but the MCU is going to choose to, as Tommy said, get all in the same room now, whether or not it is all these things. And what I really experienced as a comic book reader watching this film is very much what they do in the Marvel comic books, which is have a whole bunch of different IP to select from at any time so that they can drop it in at any time. Which I felt they did with the TVA here, because again, my expectations about the TVA coming in were they're going to reference the Loki stuff, which was one of my favorite series.
Mm-hmm.
They really didn't talk
apart
about
from using the Loki party tricks.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
They didn't talk a lot about it.
So the interesting thing is, as a creative entity that is Marvel, they were like, well, we want to take a turn here, and our best tool to take this turn is the TVA. So let's pull in the TVA and do that, but we don't need to talk about what it did before. They do that in the comic books all the time. Cassandra Nova in this movie is the same sort of thing. They dabbled a little bit in what it means and what her lore is, but they didn't really give her, I mean, she's not really present so much as they can go back and pull her in anytime they want to now. And they don't have to reference this stuff. And that's really how the world works in the comic books. You also see this in the animated series, X-Men 97. They're bringing in things from that too, where it's just that they're setting up the MCU to be like the comic books, and so that they can go any direction. So at least that's the way it feels to me, as opposed to saying we need to keep fanning out to this wide canvas of things and then bring it back. It got too wide for them. You know, they handled the Infinity Saga in a legendary way that no one has ever seen in film before. And then they tried this thing and it's not really working. So potentially they're going to take a different route. And now they have the ability to do so with what they did with this story, I think.
Yeah.
I'm torn, Ocean.
I was going to say, but is that something that you'd want from a movie? You know, in the comics, yeah, that really works, and it goes with it, and I'm with you on all of that. But in a movie, a lot of times people, you have this expectation that characters, same actors playing characters would have a through line, and that the actions that they have would have various consequences, or whatever those could be, you know, whatever those consequences are in that movie, and that it would carry on and carry through, not be, you know, similar to a comic book where we completely accept, oh, okay, so then we've just jumped into this other timeline, or this other person just came back. They're, you know, yeah, sure, we saw him die 10 issues ago, but now they're back and that's fine. And in that model of things, I would be curious about how that would be received for movies to work that way, because then whether or not you'd feel that anything had any real stakes, you know, would be lost some there. And then also it could get even more confusing for people that are passive audience members, where, you know, they watch, you know, I watch all the Captain Americas, but I skip all the Thor, you know, or something like that, where but if all these things, if they start to interact the way comic books work, you know, where you have like your solo issues and then you have your crossover events and all that, then it could become confusing for a movie going audience, because they wouldn't necessarily follow everything enough to get what was going on.
I thought this was the winnowing. This is the, we're going to follow a sacred timeline in effect, and that's the one that you have to watch.
Yes and no. I mean, you already get it with the joke about Blade, right?
Yeah.
There's only one Blade, and then you've got the wink and the nod there because Mahershala Ali is coming, and you're going to see it come up with Captain America: Brave New World too, where the main antagonist is a switched actor with a different toss away. It's the same thing, you know, that happened with Rhodey in the Avengers. I don't know what they're choosing to do, but it seems like they're setting the table to go that direction.
I am suddenly nervous after Ocean's comment that one of the next movies we're going to pick up on Earth 616 again, and then I have to just kind of reintegrate. And if there's no Deadpool on 616, if it's Blake Lively, maybe I'll be okay. But she got cut in half.
Yeah. Well, Brave New World, that will take place on Earth 616.
Is that one? That's 616. So
well,
there's
and
no
you should
Deadpool.
Know that 616 is the main Marvel.
It is. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Great. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think to this point, like if we're winnowing down to where we left Deadpool at the dinner scene, that's 10005.
Correct.
Right.
And so we're going back to 616. So my multiverse complaints have not been addressed at all, is what I'm saying.
I don't think so. I think the multiverse is still there. Deadpool, the idea that if that's when it would have happened, that Deadpool will be the vehicle of it, I think is I don't really think that would be the one, because Deadpool's making fun of everything. I mean, even the
Yes.
whole, he bangs his head against the camera and talks about how Fox sucks and I'm at Disney now.
Yeah.
The all of that
That's
stuff
awesome.
cannot. Yeah, it's awesome and funny, but I don't think that
Yeah.
that this movie would be the vehicle for something like that, because then they would have to also then address all the multiple versions of whatever we're dealing with. Even with the Fox properties, you'd have to have the multiple versions of the Fantastic Four you deal with. Forget all these juggernauts. There's the multiple Sabretooth. There's all these multiples that they'd have to deal with to say we're going to winnow them down to one. And instead of doing that, I think they're going to maintain the 616 part, where he's where they have the Avengers and what we know from their main universe, and then these other ones will just be properties that are there. Now, it may not be as much going back and forth, and maybe they're going to do that to not have people jumping back and forth between universes. But I don't think that I don't think Deadpool exists on Earth 616.
Why doesn't he exist in 616? Maybe I'm
because
missing that part.
I think there's reason to believe he does exist on 616.
Well,
I think
the
he does.
main thread of this does clearly delineate that he's on Earth 10005, and that's where, at least the way the Deadpool we know, that's where he is. And so while they could have, with the 100 Deadpools that are just there, you could have that one of them is the Deadpool from Earth 616. The Wade Wilson that we know and love is not. And so,
does that imply all the X-Men are on Earth 10005, right? Because in the last movie, where Deadpool, now we understand Deadpool is on 10005, that's where Colossus is. That's where Negasonic Teenage what's her name is?
Teenage Warhead.
Yeah, Warhead. That's where the X-Men are. So we're now talking about the fact that X-Men are all on this other universe.
Yes, yeah, that's what I think. From a movie standpoint, it would be interesting and difficult. While I would enjoy to see the effort at the task, it would be interesting and difficult to incorporate the X-Men into the same universe as everyone else. So same with the Fantastic Four. Like the most recent tease from Comic-Con was that with the Fantastic Four, they're going to have Galactus. And so if Galactus happens on 616, even though the X-Men are there,
there's already a team.
Right. You would have to say, where are the Avengers and why aren't they here? Because Galactus would be at a level of, well, the Avengers should be showing up here, right?
But here's the problem, Ocean, with that. The whole mechanic, now that they've introduced the TVA, the whole mechanic suggests that at some point, somebody through the TVA should jump through to the other timeline and get the stupid Avengers, get them over there. Like, now they've created this universe where it's like, it's dark matter. They're just doors. You just open the doors to other universes and it's fine. So why aren't we all on the same universe? Like, I can watch Tommy. His eyes are turning into spirals, like he's talking to Shere Khan right now, and it's just one of those things that I think is frustrating me. It's the whole thing. If everybody's special, no one is. If every universe exists, then why do we have multiple universes? That's the piece that I think is confusing. And DC ran into this in the Arrowverse, and it's constantly a challenge. What this movie gets right, though, for me, is the fact that we already knew Wolverine was dead, and now we have Wolverine back, played by the same actor. And it laughs at itself about exactly that point to the place where I'm comfortable with it. And as somebody who complains that there's no stakes at this point when you have multiverses and people die, this is exactly why. But it presented as a comedy, it works for me. Did anybody have problems with our introduction? We can just bust through this.
I thought it was awesome, and it felt like a red herring. It felt like that they were going to unwrite something, and they said you can't unwrite that. That's written.
Well, and the fact that we did the opening credits, some fantastic opening credits in sync, right? The bye montage was incredible and delightful.
I was so happy. I was so happy that he legitimately did the dance and did it well.
The whole thing, yes. Yeah, for sure.
That, and also for me, which I found interesting during that opening sequence that I kept thinking about was, oh yeah, I'd never thought about that. Right, his bones are adamantium, so they would be great weapons.
Yes.
Yeah, so
they're perfect.
They're perfect weapons. Yeah. So
he's Weapon X.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In terms of, let's talk just a little bit about the Deadpool Wolverine relationship, because I think there are some really good things in here presented, and I think it's actually written well. But I think this happens to be one of the blink and you'll miss it parts, because the movie has so much going on. The the fact that these two guys are actually dealing with some very real trauma as they try to relate to one another in this comedy, I thought hit me perfectly. I was more moved than I expected to be in the Deadpool movie.
I shared it on the grief side, on the
Mhm.
negative side, especially Logan at the bonfire with X-23 talking about what he did wrong and really needing to get it out and sort
Mhm.
of confess that. I felt it a lot on the grief side, a lot on the negative side. I didn't feel like I got the resolution that I wanted. Not that they didn't get a resolution. I just wanted it to be bigger. I wanted to feel better at the end, and I still felt the grief, unfortunately. So, yes, I was hit emotionally with the negatives that they went through, but gosh, I wanted it to be better for them when it was all over.
What do you mean? Do you mean when they came back and it turned out that they didn't die, you wanted them to be happier or better friends, or what?
I wanted their lives to be more meaningful, more, they're still haunted. I mean, let's just talk about Logan. Logan is still that Logan still failed. And I didn't feel like his joining in for that bit at the end really redeemed him. I don't feel like he felt redeemed by it. He felt still carrying the weight of losing his friends. And that was hard for me. Maybe if we could have focused more on that, making him feel like he had done something special, but he's still, I mean, they're still dealing with that. And you look at Deadpool, switching the focus to Deadpool here, and his line to Vanessa at the end is really beautiful, saying, I did it for you. Even if you don't want me, I did it for you. But that's all that was there. So there isn't really a reconciliation necessarily. There's the hint of one, but it's small. And maybe that's the lesson here. But the negative is very strong in this movie, and the positive doesn't really. There isn't a redemption, unfortunately. I felt like.
Yeah, I agree that it's small, but then also I think that Deadpool movies work better that way. Deadpool isn't
Sure.
about saving the world. It is about, in a sense, what he says. I'm saving my 9 friends. That's what I'm doing. I don't care about this whole universe or anything like that. And so I agree with that. I didn't feel much of the emotional impact of the trauma like I think that we were intended to. It felt rushed. A lot of this plot of this movie is rushed and just kind of there as a vehicle for what we really want to get to, which is the jokes, the gags, the action, the pleasure you get from Deadpool. What we're not Deadpool doesn't give complicated stories. They're not, all 3 movies, their plots are pretty basic. And then this all felt really rushed. Like that piece of it felt rushed to me as well. And so I view that part of it as like, okay, I accept that you have to come up with something, and this is what you came up with for the trauma that they're going through, or how they're damaged, and that it works in that they are both damaged mentally and they have gone through this trauma, and they express their grief and how they're working through it in very different ways, and that those differences do come off really well in the movie. But the idea, even the idea that he would be redeemed through it, I mean, I give that Wolverine is redeemed through the actions of this movie, but absent that, I don't know what could he do that would redeem him, because effectively he just left. He left, and then all the rest of the X-Men on his world died or were killed. And so I don't know what you could possibly do to be redeemed from that. And they don't even try to give you the first hint of it, which really could have been done fairly easily in the dinner scene at the end. Why don't you have like any interaction between Logan and Colossus? Because Colossus would ostensibly have been one of the people that was killed. And so maybe then through that, you could have gotten a window of him feeling that he has been redeemed because he saved this version of, the X-Men or something like that. But yeah, it was all kind
Something
of
like
rushed.
that.
And so I felt that, well, you have to do something, you have to do something, and it's there. And so that's fine. But that's not really, that stuff isn't why we're here.
Tom, you were gesticulating. Did you have something to throw in before I
Was I? Only I guess that maybe I kind of like the small elegance of not going in a movie that is about trying to stop using time machines. to go back and rewrite history and save history and have there actually be stakes, that all those people are lost and are lost for forever. But what you can do is move forward the best you can. And he was willing. It didn't end up killing him, and I'm still a little confused why it didn't. But when they both sacrificed themselves for everyone else. That, I mean, if you want to make it up to the past, you can't, but you can make it up to the future by doing what you didn't do. So that I thought was nice. Why were they allowed to just live? Because I was.
It's the Guardians of the Galaxy rule. So because Star-Lord can grab the jewel by himself, and if he holds onto it by himself, it's going to kill him. But because the whole team comes and grabs with him, it's spread across the whole team so he doesn't die.
Really? Because like the power is diluted? Oh.
Yeah.
Right. I don't actually mind the Guardians of the Galaxy rule. I don't have any problem with that. And in fact, I think the fact that Wolverine was sitting at that table was the redemptive moment for me.
Yeah, and he is sitting next to X-23, which is in effect his daughter. So there's something there, right?
Well, the fact is that this movie is still about loss, like Dom said.
Right.
Like, it's not Deadpool sitting next to Marina Baccarin, but it's just because he's in this other universe. Like, he reclaimed his friends at this other universe, stapling the wig to his head. But those, like, this was his effort to find community and rebuild community and realize how important these people are to him, because he's already lost so much in the past, right? We've already witnessed him losing so many loved ones in the past. And so the fact that they were even in the room together, for me, was the small expression of forward progress in the face of loss for everyone. I am on team, you can't redeem what happened, Logan, but you do have family to live for going forward. The family.
Yeah, because if you can just sort of fix things by moving, I'm sorry, my drink is talking to me. I mean, that's Superman making the world spin around the other way.
Yes.
I mean, that was the original cheat. So yeah. So I prefer this moving forward in small ways, but it's a showing that you have changed. That's the biggest thing that you can do from the sins of your past, is you are moving forward in a positive way.
On another note, can we talk about cameos?
So many.
What I love about these cameos, I thought it was going to be a cameo parade in the form of just faces. And there were plenty of those, just faces, especially in the opening sequence when we go through and see all the Deadpools and Henry Cavill shows up, which is answering one of the internet's great questions, is why can't we have Henry Cavill when Hugh Jackman leaves? And now we get to see just a few frames of Henry Cavill. But the fact that there was one cameo that made me cheer. My audience cheered.
Just one? Your audience only cheered at one cameo?
But there was one that was the pinnacle of utility cameos. And I wonder if it's the same one that you guys have, if there is one of your favorites. I don't know. Do we say it on 3?
What you mean?
Mine was already brought up. Probably was Blade.
There's multiple of mine, and mine has not been brought up.
Which cameo was your favorite?
Was not.
Yeah.
No, which
cameo
was
your
the biggest response?
Yeah.
Yes?
Oh, biggest response.
Yeah. Which got the biggest response for you? Yeah.
Oh,
Ocean.
Okay. So the biggest response, of course, is Johnny Blaze. And that was the biggest response and the biggest amount of confusion, because even the people that I was with, a lot of people did not remember that was the same actor, because they were saying, why is he they were legitimately confused why he was doing that, and confusing him with that. Well, no, that's not him, because the new Johnny Blaze, which is Michael B. Jordan, who you would never confuse with Chris Evans. Right? So there's like, well, it's not him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that. And so that was clearly the biggest reaction, and then that was the biggest reaction for me. It wasn't my favorite. It was great. It was not my personal favorite. My personal favorite was Elektra coming back, and what even though she only had a few lines or a few scenes here and there, what she did with her character, and honestly how I felt that her character was used to explain what was going on with all these other cameos occurring. How it's like, hey, now we're going to get our ending, and now we're going to be able to be what we were, or what we should have been, instead of just canceled and discarded. And so that was my personal favorite, but the biggest reaction was definitely Johnny Blaze.
Definitely Johnny Blaze.
Johnny Blaze was huge in my audience too. And my favorite, I mean, Gambit as untouched AI to this, or AI IP at this point, is a very interesting thing, because in the comic book world, he's popular on the level of Wolverine. So
For sure. Yeah.
so the fact that it's Channing Tatum and that he comes in, and I loved everything he did. I love that. I love the way they treated X-23 in this movie. I think they should use her all the time. I think she was great, and the throwbacks that she had, the Easter eggs with Logan, in the way she dressed, in the way that she acted, like all that stuff, I thought were perfectly executed. So those were some of my favorites.
Tom, do you have enough lore in your back pocket to have a favorite cameo?
Did you guys see real way in the background in that one scene, Jonathan Majors was like, "What are you guys doing?" Jonathan Majors in his Kang outfit. He's like, "What, you guys making a movie?"
Yeah.
Come over. I think Blade was the one I was most surprised by. And I don't even have much of a connection to that. But when he showed up, I was like, "Oh, wow, huh. Interesting." And I'd forgotten that there's a new Blade that is in development hell or wherever that is and stuff like this. I thought that he was untouchable. I think maybe part of me thought he might still have been in jail or for tax evasion or whatever he was a long time ago. Yeah. So that was kind of fun. I feel like there are more, but I'll go with.
Well, we got McConaughey. He had a voice part as Cowboy Deadpool.
Nathan Fillion.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely well, Channing Tatum was my favorite to actually see on screen, but the Johnny Storm Human Torch was so great because it actually got a punchline at the end of the movie. The post-credits sequence of this movie is possibly my favorite that there has been in Marvel movies. I was dying.
It represents Johnny. It's perfect for the character.
Totally.
It's great.
Yeah, it was really, really perfect. So huge wins in the cameo department. And I don't think this is what I was getting at earlier. I don't think they were all just face parades. Like, we had utility sequences when we have Blade and Channing Tatum, or Gambit and Elektra all showing up to be part of a team. That was really lovely. And I didn't get any sense that X-23 is not going to be a part of something in the future. I'd love to see Daphne Keane continue her role and grow up. Wonderful. Yes, wonderful.
So what was your guys' opinion of the first thing when they're in the void, when they effectively have the Mad Max Furiosa a knockoff of, when Sabretooth shows up with the motorcycle engines looking very Chris Hemsworth Thor in it, and they had the big speakers. All they were missing was the guy playing the flaming guitar.
And they had the Red Skull car.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So did that. That was one of the different little jokes that they have about making fun of things. That was the one that caught me by the most surprise. Caught me by surprise the most, because it's not another comic book movie. This is a whole different IP, and that they were going to then make that joke. And then also the Wolverine and Sabretooth fight, where there was all this build up and it lasted about 3 seconds.
It was the Indiana Jones gun whip showdown.
Really was. It really was. And it honestly was one of those things of where I thought, oh, so they actually decided to do what would legitimately happen if these two characters went at each other for real, trying to kill each other. Like, yes, it would.
That was my thought.
It would end just like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was the part of the movie when I said that at times it felt a little crushing. The beginning of the void was the furthest away I felt from the movie. It felt the most in-jokey. Not that I was angry. I was happy because it was filmed well and filmed quickly. And I love the broken 20th Century Fox logo. That's my favorite part potentially of the movie. But that all felt like rough, and I was confused by Johnny Blaze, and then he fell on his dong and fell over, and I was like, uh-oh. Like, I was starting to get a little bit of shark jumpy vibes of like, oh, I'm being left behind. This is too much. And it very quickly turned the corner and came back. And I love the big bad, the actress from Murder at the End of the World. I think she's stunning and so cool. I like her a lot. Them a lot.
This is Cassandra Nova.
Cassandra Nova. Yeah, that was the. For me,
is that the character's name or the actor's name? I'm sorry.
The character. The actress is Emma Corrin.
Okay.
Emma Corrin is the actress, but the character is Cassandra Nova. And for me, that was actually the only part of the movie I didn't like.
Oh.
Yeah, she to me was the MacGuffin. in that it was like, well, we have to have
Mm.
some big bad here, and we could not figure out a good way to get Matthew McFadden's brilliant Mr. Paradox to be the villain more, through more of it. And I understand that, because it wouldn't make any sense why he would have, all these other superheroes locked away so he could do all the cameos. But everything about her to me was, it felt like that was part of the movie that I was enduring. And I just accepted that, okay, you have to have a bad guy. Sure, this works. But that that for me all fell flat with her, that performance, that role, that whole thing. And so it felt more like I was just trying to get through any scenes with her in it and get back to Deadpool and Wolverine.
I disagree. I liked her a lot, and I love the way, again, talking about wading into the X lore that they have here in a way that we've done in other vehicles too. When we think about Legion and the different things where we talk about Charles as this person who's other, right, that we haven't really experienced. We had him in Multiverse of Madness in the MCU, but in general, to talk about the strength of a person like Charles, and then the people who are connected to him, like Cassandra Nova, like Legion, also being so, it's kind of omnipotent, right?
Yeah.
To the thing. Like, I thought she was perfect for it. I thought she delivered it perfect. And I actually appreciated her character change in the climax of the film, in that you have Deadpool and Wolverine effectively saving her for the right reasons. And so she makes she's not fully villainous. She actually makes the turn to allow them a chance to leave, and then of course she takes out Pyro in spectacular fashion. Like, I liked the character and the way that they used it. I feel like, and Ocean, I actually think that that's some of the criticism I've heard of this film, that the problem with the multiverse is the lack of depth in villains, and I actually don't agree with that criticism. I think Cassandra Nova works for the villain of this one. I liked everything she did on screen. Speaking of the fingers, that body horror of
Yeah,
the
it was
hands
creepy.
to the back, like,
Brilliant.
wow, that was intense for me.
I had to look up Cassandra Nova because this was a part of X lore that I was not terribly familiar with, and I kept thinking, like, what I got out of the movie was she's connected to Charles and is Charles's sister, twin. But is she Patrick Stewart's sister, twin? Because they're not the same. So
Age. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, right.
Age.
She is Mumodry, right? Is that right? Mumodry? Do you know this word? I've
Yeah,
never actually heard it out
the
loud.
idea from the X lore, yes, and that it was a lot.
Yes.
It's the way that her consciousness, because her body died, because the Charles Xavier kills her in the womb because he recognizes her evil and does that, and then her consciousness though has the ability to come out and then creates another body.
That exactly. So this is great. This is, of course, according to Shi'ar myth. Momodrai, also known as the anti-self, are entities that each individual must fight before being born. The Momodrai are residents of the astral plane and are born alongside every sentient creature. So she is actually not the only Momodrai. She's just the one we meet here. There are other Momodrai that show up in the lore that I did not know were Momodrai. Who knew that? That's okay. I get it. There are people who did know. I like the word so much now. I want to name my next animal that Momodrai. But that actually helped me to. That actually helped me kind of get behind her as an entity in this place and her god power, right? That she's just like, she does whatever she wants. Like, I sort of get it, reading up on her backstory and why she matters in the lore, and made me a little bit sad that we're not going to get more of her, right? Maybe she exists somewhere else, but I think once she's in the void, like, that was it. When she came out, like, that was the version of her. So who knows?
This is the point that I'm talking about the IP and the way they use it in the comic books, in that, like, are we going to see Charlize Theron in the MCU? Like, we had her for an instant, right?
For an instant.
At the end of Multiverse of Madness. So is she gone? We don't know. And the same can be said about this character, right? I mean, they can pull her when they need an omnipotent character that lives in a void at any time. Right. And they probably will. And I think that's the usefulness of the IP.
I liked it. I liked her. I thought her performance was, for me, great and interesting, and her character design, especially when you go look at the original comic art of her, was spot on. She's very smooth, is I think the word.
As all Mama Dry are.
As all Mama
yeah.
Dry are. I will tell you there are other notable Mama Dry, including, but not exclusive of, Ev Triel Urizen, who lived dormant within its host mind until delivered by the Shi'ar scientists. So
the
you
Shi'ar
know,
yeah.
those Shi'ar
Those,
scientists. So I'm sure we will get more Shi'ar science in movies in the future. Now that
they've brought
20th
the
Century
X-Men
Fox
back,
is in the dirt.
probably because there is a lot of IP there with the Shi'ar and how Charles Xavier goes into space and does all this stuff. There's a lot of comic book issues with that, so they very well could try to bring that in somehow.
And so you guys
Charles
know,
goes into space like Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you guys haven't watched X-Men 97. So
I haven't finished it.
Okay, so wait, so you haven't seen Charles in Space then yet?
I've seen the
there
first
is-
episode. When I say I haven't finished it, I mean I barely started it.
Yeah, there's a lot. They are already incorporating a lot of that in X-Men
great.
97, which is technically canon. I mean, you get into the weirdness of the animated stuff and the TV series and the what if stuff. It's complex, but the reality is they can use any of it, and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make about all of the creative ideas that are out there.
It is a universe. It
Right?
is a universe. Any other notable casting performances that you want to shout out? Can you pick out any that stand out to you? Anybody exciting you want to talk about?
Channing Tatum was a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure.
I don't think the accent carried as much comic weight as they made it out to have, but I like it, and I like Channing Tatum in the role, and I'm just so happy to see Gambit that I didn't care.
Well, also, I think part of the issue with the accent was it was so thick that the joke about who is your dialogue coach really kind of worked for me because it was so thick. There was times I just couldn't understand what he was saying, and that to me became problematic because I'm like, oh, I think that I've maybe missed a funny joke here or something great because I just didn't understand him.
That worked for me because it was a joke. I have to imagine if we ever get a Gambit entry into the broader universe, we'd be able to understand them, or they'd at least let us turn on subtitles.
Exactly. Oh, I think they would. Circling back around as far as the different cameos, the one that also very meta, having Jon Favreau come back with that Happy Hogan, and how they, the interview is like when they first introduced time travel, because the interview takes place before Infinity War, because they're going back to March 18th, 2018, which is before all that. And so, him, that interaction and interplay, I mean, I like Jon Favreau in really just about everything he does. And so I thought that it was funny. The scene itself I enjoyed, and I enjoyed the interplay between the two characters and kind of what that whole thing represented. But also I liked the extra layer of meta in that Jon Favreau was Foggy Nelson in the original Daredevil movies with Ben Affleck. And so you're also then calling, and so it's a way that you're bringing back a character. He's playing his MCU character, but he also is one of the characters from the original, those older Fox movies that were made, and bringing him back with that. So so I really enjoyed that.
Double cameo.
Yes.
And I will say, bringing that up again, you guys touched on the montage at the end with the Green Day song. That was probably the most emotional part for me with the movie, to see all the fun that all of those people that we love so much had in making those Fox movies. And I mean, they mattered a lot to me when they came out, especially the first three X movies. And just to get a sort of, I guess, a send off to that in this, I felt like it was something that I didn't know that I wanted, but I wanted very much. And so that I really appreciated. I thought that there's many reasons to stick around at the end of this movie, but that was the best one for me.
I like the idea that they just gave it a nod to say, to remind us all that those movies matter.
Yeah.
Right. They matter. Yeah. They matter a lot. Just because Hugh Jackman is the character that transcended the X-Men, the movies themselves matter to this universe too. I think that was important. Awesome. Sean Levy, what's our current stand on Sean Levy as director, writer, producer?
What he do again?
Well, He was part of the Night at the Museum franchise. He directed one of them, produced the others. He's done Stranger Things, Free Guy, Shadow and Bone, Love and Monsters. These are production credits for him. Let's see if I go
Mostly a
back to his
producer.
directors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
mostly
mostly
a producer.
I loved Free Guy.
His direction. Yeah,
I did.
that was super fun.
Yeah, he was a
Um,
producer on The Arrival as well,
Yep.
which I think is one of the greatest movies of the last decade.
Underrepresented Real Steel was a great, lovely movie
Yes.
that he
Yes,
directed.
it was.
But he
that-
has really grown up.
uh,
Big Fat Liar, Just Married, Cheaper by the Dozen, The Pink Panther. He's a journeyman. He's been around for a long time.
But
cool.
And a lot of comedy, Date Night, Night at the Museum, like those. The Pink Panther. Okay, yeah, that didn't bowl me over. But I think there's a certain note of comedy that I think he does get right. I think there was some concern that that I had read some nerd concern that he was not going to be able to live up to what Deadpool represents as director. I disagree with that. I think it was actually I think he actually was able to step in just fine and clearly has great camaraderie with Ryan Reynolds. They work really well together. And to me it feels like a perfect match for him being, because we haven't had a consistent director yet for Deadpool movies, right? The first one was Tim Miller, I think. Second one was David Leitch. And now Levy in this one.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds is probably directing.
Yeah, that's
so
really
that's
really
true.
what's going
That's
on.
true.
It's like, this is his baby, and so he's deciding how it goes.
Yeah. It plays for me for sure.
I thought it was great.
Do we think this is the last Deadpool we're going to see as a standalone movie? Do we just get the trilogies and then they move on? Whether he's in the bigger features or not?
Tough to say.
What's your guess? Where do you put your money?
I feel like the story value of the three movies, and this is just sort of evaluating them individually, has gone down, right? The value of the individual story of each film kind of goes back to what you said about like, what did number 2 fix for us, right? They've gotten smaller in terms of what they accomplish on film. So he feels more, Deadpool as a character to the MCU feels more like a tool, a vehicle right now. So I can't see a reason for it currently, but it's a great tool if they need it. Is how I would say about
it is.
that.
I think it's the end. That's where I would put my money. I hope to be wrong in that at some point they do on MCU Deadpool, and what I mean by that is the MCU movies have this characteristic of all of them are the whole world is at stake. And that is usually the stakes. It's like the world, the universe, the multiverse. There's always these really, really big stakes. And Deadpool is a character best served where it's not big stakes. It's like this city will get destroyed or blown up, maybe at best, or some people that you care about are going to die. Whatever. He's much more that level. And so the MCU doesn't, at least so far, and I'm going off my memory and thinking through this, they're all big stake movies. And I think that Deadpool is more of a smaller ball character, and that's where he really belongs. And I hope that they make other ones, because you can't bring Deadpool into the next Captain America because it's going to be PG-13, and then Deadpool's going to be wasted. And so unless they're going to start making rated R movies in the MCU with other characters, then the only way to really do Deadpool correctly is in his movie, but his movie needs to be smaller stakes. He's not a save the universe character.
He could be a cool, like, Daredevil, like, limited series kind of a thing. Like, he has a murder mystery or a noir, but to put his sensibility in that is, like, to take down the Joker, not the Joker, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have seen that there is a vision for the MCU to separate a little bit what they would call street level characters from universe level characters or galactic level characters, in that you have the new Daredevil series coming out, you have these street, and part of what they've done with some of the stories is try to conform or label each of their characters as that, right? You look at what happened with Spider-Man. Spider-Man had a galactic storyline leading into the Infinity Saga, but as he sort of in the final spot in No Way Home, he goes through this spell to make him a street level character, which is kind of where that character belongs in the way that it's his individual stories work. So I agree with you. I think Deadpool works best on the street level. Again, as we've talked about here, the ideas, the vision, the canvas got too big for Marvel, and they were kind of including everyone on this galactic level. And so hopefully that vision comes to play where you see people on a scale that they belong in.
Yes,
forward.
I agree. But I think that with the Marvel, what they seem to be doing with that is with the television shows. And so then the question becomes, can they get Ryan Reynolds to do a Deadpool TV series? If they can, then then you see it that way. But then I would again, is kind of where I'm putting my money on, that there's not any more.
Evidently, they need to be able to make a lot of cocaine jokes for that to happen.
Exactly. Yes.
But,
That's so great.
How much do they want to talk about?
I know. Yeah. So and apparently, actually, I was curious about that and why that became a thing. And so apparently, it's all just a misunderstanding. In that so they were Ryan Reynolds was talking to Kevin. Now I've always pronounced his last name Feige. Is that not correct?
Yeah,
okay,
Feige.
Feige.
Oh,
Okay,
I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Oh, okay, good. Okay,
I'm famously on record.
All right, awesome. As long as okay, now I know it's not just me. Okay, so then, but they, so Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Feige are having a conversation about, like, are there things that in Deadpool we need to stay away from? And there was some cocaine joke in it, and Feige says, "Well, yeah, this cocaine joke seems kind of played, so maybe don't do that." And so they turned that into, so Ryan Reynolds he mistook, and I don't know if it's a true mistaking or just mistook it and changed it into not get rid of that one joke, but that Disney doesn't want us joking about cocaine. So here are 10 other jokes about us not joking about cocaine. And so
that sounds perfect. Like Ryan Reynolds.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So that was great for that. I thought that was interesting as far as these little things, or like even with Liefeld's Little Feet, the store, and everything about making a whole joke about how Rob Liefeld, who created Deadpool and a lot of these other, Cable and all these other characters we're seeing, and how in his comics the running joke is that he can't draw feet. And so there's always little jokes, and there's actually jokes about it in the other Deadpool movies as well. But they're always making fun of his quote unquote inability to draw feet, even though he can and does, but he just that he rarely drew feet. And so that was the whole thing, and that's why every time Liefeld is referenced in this, it's always something to do with feet.
That's outstanding. I did not know that reference. That's great. It just makes me think I need a director's commentary about this that just tracks inside jokes and Easter eggs, because I knew a lot of them. I felt like I went in competent, and I realized I did not. There, maybe I guess 60%. I think probably 60%.
That's a good percentage, because they were packing in a lot. I mean, there were some things that I recognized as Easter eggs that I was like, I know that's something, but I don't know what it is.
The fact that the movie gets the proposal reference was, I thought,
and it's just the name of it. He goes, "You think that's what I do?" That was so funny. Just using the name, not making a joke of it.
Yeah,
so funny.
Right. All right, I think it's time, gents. It's time for us to turn our attention to the stars. But first, let's talk a bit about the fourth wall. Imagine an invisible barrier separating the world of a film or play from the audience. That's the fourth wall. When characters break this wall, they acknowledge the audience's presence, creating a unique connection that draws viewers into the story. The roots of this technique can be traced back to ancient Greek theater in the 5th century BCE, where the chorus served as a bridge between the characters and the audience. Shakespeare and Molière did it in the 16th and 17th centuries. The first cinematic experience is widely considered to be Mary McLean's silent film, Men Who Have Made Love to Me, in 1917. But it was Bugs Bunny who made breaking the fourth wall a standard for me. I'd later see Woody Allen do it, or Scorsese, or Mel Brooks, or so many others. But to me, they're all aping a move made popular Saturday mornings, taken with cereal, a pillow, a blanket, and a soft couch. Do you know what other tool is used to captivate audiences, blurring the lines between fiction and reality and inviting us to become active participants in the stories unfolding before our eyes? a membership to the Next Reel's family of film podcasts, including The Film Board. For just a few bucks a month, you'll get periodic bonus episodes and extended editions of our regular episodes in your very own personal podcast feed. You'll get access to the secret channels in our Discord server. You'll get to jump into live streams as we record most of our episodes. And of course, you'll have the sweet satisfaction of knowing that you're supporting the podcasts you care about. And because this show is a part of the whole Next Reel family, by signing up, you get access to all the specials of the Next Reel, Singing in the Dark, CinemaScope, and Movies We Like, in addition to the Film Board. So go ahead, break the fourth wall yourself at truestory.fm/join. And thank you for your support. Now, on with the show. Letterboxd. We're on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/the Next Reel. That's where you can find our HQ page over on Letterboxd, where we're tracking the movies, and we're going to see where we need to reach into the void and take stars from other overrated movies and rip them out into this universe and give them to Deadpool and Wolverine. JJ, where would you like to start?
I gave it a 3.5, which I think is higher than the fair to middling stuff that you heard, since you said it was 2 to 3, but I love the lore so much, and I'm so happy it was made. It's one of my favorite movies of the year just because I wanted to see it so badly. So it is, even though I think it's simple and could have been done better, and I wanted more connective tissue, I was still so happy about it. So I gave it 3.5 and a heart.
Okay, Tommy, to you.
I will give it a 4 and a heart. The end.
Oh, that's the stuff right there. Now we're getting into some juicy star territory. Outstanding. Ocean?
4 stars and a heart. The only thing that kept it
There
for
we
me
go.
with 5. I'm going to watch it again multiple times. There's so many Easter eggs in it. The main thing that did keep it for me from being 5 stars is where I do somewhat agree with JJ here, in that the plot is so basic that it really doesn't give you much of any meat to chew on there as far as the story, but I didn't really care. And so therefore it is still definitely a 4 stars and a heart for me.
I'm gonna go with 4 stars on this initial watch too, 4 stars and a heart, but I'm gonna do it because not because I felt like it was a simple movie. I don't know that it was a simple movie. It's a heroic movie for me in just all that they managed to get in there. I just feel like I want to understand it more better. And so I need to see it a couple more times to so that believe me, this is a me problem, so that I can earn the 5 stars that this movie probably deserves. Do you see? Do you see what happened? The proposal. All right. Coming up next month. Oh, it's a big month. It's a big month. We are we're gonna go. we're gonna jump on our drop ship, and we're gonna go back up to the Nostromo, I guess, and we're gonna go look for a new space station called Romulus. That's right, it's Alien Romulus, and I can't wait. Oh, I didn't even know how excited I was about this movie. Then I saw the trailer and I started sweating. I just am really excited about this movie. Tom, you're in with me, right?
I'm so in. I like that even in the trailer. Why do we make spaceships where all the doors look like mouths and teeth closing? just have a doorknob. Space is already filled with things that are trying to kill you, and now there's like to turn on the hot water on the sink. It's a spike. Why? It's not necessary.
Stuff is so wet in this movie.
It's
I don't know.
Wet and sharp, and apparently something is in the water.
Something's in the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stop fooling around, guys.
Hide your faces, everybody. So the other thing that we're doing is, because we have this, we've got this great opportunity to revisit our youths and look at a new movie too. It's the Crow month. That's August, the Crow month. So we are going to do a bonus episode in August where we talk about the Skarsgård era of the Crow, and I think we're going to add a little dose of the original Crow too. Not the sequels, but we are going to do both Crows, and I'm very excited about that. Ocean is in on that. You guys, JJ's in on that for sure. Tommy, are you down for the Crow?
No.
Okay. And Matthew Fox from Superhero Ethics and Star Wars Generation is going to be joining us for that too. So it should be a fun way to review our youth and birds. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. We sure appreciate your time and attention. Thank you, Tommy Handsome.
Mama Dry to all of you.
And JJ.
See you next time.
And Ocean, my psychic spiritual womb twin.
Thank you for not murdering me in the womb when you sensed my evil.
We both made it.
Yes, yeah. It's always a pleasure doing this, and you can see me again later on this month on the Adrian Moment, our next episode where we will discuss the movie Miracle about the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team.
Oh, such a good movie.
My heart just grew 3 sizes.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks everybody. Thank you for hanging out. We appreciate all of you. Meeting adjourned.